Hey everyone, happy Friday! Welcome back to another episode of Fireside Friday. So I am on site today, different background, different location, but excited to talk about what we've got, which is quite a lot. So if you guys have not been keeping up with the news that's coming out, I don't blame you. It's been an excessive amount of information, and a lot of which has not actually been reported, which is fascinating. So today I'm going to talk about a few things. Obviously, I'm going to talk about current events and events happening that you might not have any awareness of because they're not being covered by major stations, and if they are being covered, they're only being covered to a certain degree, and they're twisting around the words, and they're not giving you the full interview or the full whatever. So my job is to, as always, report to you what's actually happening, full versions of it, and to give you access to links, which I will do later, where you can track down all this information yourself and make your own mind up. My goal with Fireside Friday chats is for you to start thinking outside of whatever current narrative you currently have. It's to make you think. It's to make you stop and to make you wonder what is actually going on here, and is it what I have been told? Or could there be more happening that we don't know yet, that's developing, that we should be looking at? My goal here is not to get you to side with any aisle politically. I'm in the US, so not to side with a particular Democratic Party or a particular form of leadership, but it's to be able to look at the leadership and the decisions that are being made with a critical eye instead of a biased eye. Because I've said this in other videos, but I'm going to say it again. I myself come from a very liberal background, and that's what I grew up aligning with and believing in, and I really believed a lot of the narrative for a long time. And when all of this started going down, and a little bit before this as well, I started noticing some alarming trends in that community and in those leaders. And since this has all happened, the trend has gotten ever more alarming and concerning. And I think it's important that we keep our eyes open and that we ask important questions. All right, so someone just messaged me. Okay, I want to make sure there was not someone that said they couldn't watch the video. All right, so please say hello as you are hopping on so I can say hi to you and make sure that my audio and everything image is good before I jump in. I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. I'm going to talk, of course, what's happening as far as politics go that I think is important and noteworthy. I'm going to talk about some healthcare related things that I think are important and noteworthy. And then I'm going to talk about censorship because it's happening a lot right now, and what's being done about that, and what you can probably expect in the near future. Okay, so one of the things that I talked about in last week's video was a video that was filmed called Plandemic with Dr. Judy Mikovich. And since that video was shared, one of the things that I said during my chat last week was, do not be surprised for all the trolls that will reveal themselves coming at attacking her character, attacking her credibility, attacking her history, attacking her whatever, because that's the name of the game, right? As soon as someone can start talking with credibility in the opposite direction of the mainstream narrative, you are going to start experiencing some issues. Because the goal is we don't want something against the mainstream narrative. And if some crackpot is talking about it that doesn't have a medical background or doesn't have a political background or isn't connected to anyone, and they're kind of talking about it, not so much a threat. But as soon as someone starts talking about an alternate narrative that has some credibility, that has been in the environments where these people rub elbows, now we got to shoot her off, because we can't let that person gain any amount of momentum. Because what you guys need to understand is the way that alternate narratives are discredited is because of the people talking about them. That's one of the first things they'll say. Oh, like that random person talking about that conspiracy, or what credentials do they have? What background do they have? That's the first place people go to discredit these kinds of conversations instead of like thinking critically. So as soon as you have someone who does have a credible background and who is someone who's intelligent and well educated and connected, that's when people typically start taking it more seriously or start asking themselves questions. So those are the people who are going to be attacked first, and they're going to be attacked hard. And what's so interesting is she was completely demolished. I mean, people went out of their way to make all of these videos talking about how that video was not true and none of the information she presented was true. Doctors making like debunking videos, like it went far. It went super, super far. But what's so funny is like people were commenting as people were sharing this video and it was gaining traction. People were like, it's already been debunked. It's already been debunked. Da, 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 right? And they never stopped to really ask themselves. First of all, that told me, those people who were doing that told me they never actually watched the original video. Because if you did watch Plandemic, one of the things that she says right at the end of the video, she says two things. And most of the people coming at her and attacking this video were like, she's an anti-vaxxer. Obviously, she's going to say that, or whatever, right? Number one, at the end of this video, she specifically says she's not. She specifically says she believes in these therapeutic immunizations. Like, she said that. She said what she didn't believe in was bad science, which most of us would agree that's exactly true. Most of us want safe science. That's what we actually want, right? So she says that. On top of that, she says towards the middle end of her interview, I was told that if I ever came back into the public and started talking about this, that they would find new evidence against me. She said that in the video, and guess what's happening? Ta-da! New evidence is being shown against her. It's like she was a prophet when she made that video. She wasn't a prophet. She knows the name of the game. She knew how this was going to go down, right? She told you ahead of time what was going to happen, and that's exactly what happened, right? So I have a long list. Someone went out of their way to literally go head to head, point to point with everybody who wanted to debunk her in her video. And I have a long list full of links and you can track so that you can verify the details on my YouTube channel so that you guys can visit each link yourself, read each thing yourself, and decide for yourself what you think. But I just found it so comical that I literally said that was going to happen last week, and then the whole following week was a whole lot of that. And I was like, look at that. So predictable. If you haven't seen Plandemic, yes, so now the fact checkers, that's the other thing, you guys. Understand that your fact checkers are completely biased. 100% biased. They are bought and sold, giving you a specific narrative. And I'm going to prove that. Actually, I'll jump to that right now, because why not? Since we're on the topic of health videos, which is what Plandemic was about, her talking about her work as a scientist and what she discovered while she was doing that. So a video is now circulating around as well of Zuckerberg being interrogated by a congressperson about the intense censorship that Facebook has had about anything that is non-pro-vaccination or questioning vaccinations, okay? If y'all didn't know that, there is intense censorship about this on Facebook, to the point where if you tried to look for a group or you tried to connect with any other information that wasn't staunchly pro, you would not be able to find it. They make it hard on purpose, which he himself said in the middle of his interrogation, okay? And the congressperson, again, I will share this video. The congressperson was asking him questions about why he felt the need, basically, to censor any opposing information or anything other than staunchly pro when there is a verifiable pool of money that is given out every single year. I mean, thousands and millions of dollars for vaccine injury. That is a real fund that exists to compensate victims of vaccine injury, and the congressperson brought this up. He said, if this fund exists and these payouts are happening and they are trackable, then that communicates to us that there is a certain degree of risk, and people who are investigating should be able to know all options of this conversation, not just one option of this conversation. These were the words of the congressperson. And the congressman said himself, I myself am pro-vaccination, and I still believe that people have the right to learn all sides of a conversation in a situation before they make a decision. So why is it that Facebook goes out of its way to censor any other point of information that is not in one direction? And Zuckerberg has the audacity to say himself, we don't censor people for posting information on their profile that's wrong. I'm sorry, did you just yourself show the entire world that you believe that only your opinion about this is correct? Did you just say that? Because that's what it sounded like. It sounded like only your opinion about this is accurate. And then he proceeds to explain to this congressperson how Facebook works for censorship, specifically of this issue. It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And here's the thing. Conservative posts, conservative comments are being censored. And I don't care what you believe in. You hate the president, you love the president, you like conservatives, you don't like them. That goes against the very basic fabric of freedom of speech. It's not freedom of speech as long as you like it or agree with it. It's freedom of speech, period. I have had to endure highly intense religious people saying horrible things at me for much of my life on my college campus with a megaphone in hand because they have the right to do that. So how are you going to come into a digital platform and start shutting people down because you don't like, no, we have to deal with freedom of speech. That's what it is. Freedom of speech is not for some people, it's for all people, right? That's the point. So as long as you're censoring some things, that's a very slippery slope. And he tried to paint it as well, we're trying to protect people. It's no, you have to understand that this is not about protecting people. Censorship is not about that. That's how they paint it for you, so that you can get more comfortable with the idea of being censored. Understand they're never going to tell you, yeah, we're doing this because we want to control dialogue. They're always going to tell you it's for your own good. They're always going to tell you it's to keep you safe. They're always going to tell you that. It's not true. It's not true. They're lying to you on purpose. And it was obvious because as he was being interrogated, he was fumbling, mumbling. He didn't have an answer. I mean, he was trying to make it sound like he wasn't censoring, and he was. And it was just obvious in a 5-minute conversation that he had with this congressperson. So that video said it was published on 30th of April. I don't know when it was recorded, but that's when it was published. It could be recent. It could not be, but I found it to be a very good example of these people. This person who clearly admitted that he is censoring specific information on his platform is also the same person creating fact checkers for information on those platforms. So do you really think those fact checkers are going to be neutral? No. Those fact checkers are going to align with a specific narrative, and anything that goes against that narrative or is different than that narrative is going to get flagged. So do not just blindly believe the fact checkers is really leading you towards the facts, because everything has an agenda. Especially these days, it's so obvious, okay? So just don't buy into the fact checkers. I just wanted to give you that little example to talk about that. Okay, so update on my mask fiasco. Last week I talked about going into being denied labs at Quest because I wasn't wearing a mask. Then I talked about going to LabCorp to get labs, and they let me get my labs without wearing a mask. They weren't wearing a mask. I did not have to wear a mask, okay? I got my ass chewed out. I got called a spoiled brat. I got called irresponsible. I got called an idiot. I got insulted so much because I was I am not going to wear a mask. I am not sick. First of all, I have other reasons for why I'm not wearing a mask, which is nobody's business, because divulging your medical history shouldn't be anybody's business. But I got torn up by trolls on that post when I shared that story. Then this week, what do I find? An interview with Fauci himself on 60 Minutes, specifically saying that masks are for the infected and healthcare workers, and the majority of people should not be wearing them in public. He freaking said that himself, and I howled when I found that video. I was like, I cannot. Of course, I shared it. I'm going to put a link to it at the bottom of this. But just so that you see how much the mass mob mentality can take over, okay, and convince you that what you're doing is right and what everybody else is doing is wrong. And then you have the dude himself who has been leading this conversation, God knows why he's been leading this conversation, talking about how masks are only for those two specific populations of people. Now, I don't look so dumb, do I? But then, of course, I share this on my threads, and guess what? Crickets. Nobody wanted to come out and talk about it. Still waiting for my apology, by the way, mass trolls. So before you're so quick to jump down someone's throat when they're sharing certain information, be aware that you don't have all the information, and this is proof of that. You don't have all the information. Don't be so quick to jump on people when they're making choices different than the choices you're making, because you might not have all the information, and this was a perfect example of that. Okay, again, you'll have access to that video. It's like a 2-minute clip. It's a clip from the interview. He says it right out of his mouth himself. Okay. Okay, let's jump to the censorship conversation again real quick, because I want to give this particular example. I mentioned David Icke a couple of weeks ago because, number one, I find his stuff really fascinating. He's been doing conspiracy work for a long time. He's been digging into a lot of things for a very long time. And you can think whatever you want about him. People think he's a crackpot, he's full of trash, whatever. You can have whatever opinion you want of the dude. But again, free speech is free speech. Period. There's no clause for that. Okay? He got deplatformed on Facebook, on YouTube. His interviews with London Real, which is run by a man by the name of Brian Rose. He's an American, but he lives in the UK, and he does amazing interviews. He's a very interesting dude, and he himself says at the beginning of his interviews with David Icke, I might not agree with everything you say, David, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. And I 100% agree with Brian Rose. That's exactly how I feel. So he brings on people to interview, not necessarily because he agrees with them, but because they have a different perspective and it is of value to the community. I feel the same way. Okay? So he did 3 interviews with Icke, and they were long. Every single one of them was like 2 to 3 hours long. Super long interviews. By the time the second one had come out, Icke was deplatformed everywhere, and London Real started to get attacked and threatened with being deplatformed. At that point, Brian Rose decided that he was going to fight back. He crowdfunded a video software, platform for himself, and now he does all of his interviews on his own video platform. He no longer will be doing them on places like YouTube or anywhere that's public of that nature. This is how serious censorship is becoming. This is where we're at right now, where people who are just trying to give different information so that you can decide whatever you want to decide, and so to encourage you to critically think, their livelihoods are being taken away. These people make money from YouTube. They earned their life was on the internet, and they're being stripped of their livelihoods for a differing of opinions. If you don't think that's scary, we have a very different value system, because to me that is unacceptable. Unacceptable. And what's very interesting, and I talked about this a few weeks ago when I brought in the 5G conversation, the number one thing that was getting Icke deplatformed or getting him suspended was any time that he tried to link 5G with the current virus. If he talked about a link between them to any degree, he would get attacked, right? And what he started noticing was that anybody else who was doing that was also getting attacked. So, all right, Blanks came back. I myself don't know a lot about those two things. I'm not going to talk about that, but that's what he was losing his platforms for. So I do have a link to the website where you can actually, I shared it in my Patreon for my patrons of that interview. Again, you can't watch this third interview in public anymore. You actually have to go to London Real's website and subscribe. And they are very long, but I think it's so worth listening to. Number 3 in particular was a really, really good interview. He did 3, but this one, it's worth listening to. And just listen with an open mind and let yourself take it in, process it, decide what resonates, what doesn't resonate, but listen to the conversation. Listen to something else other than what you're hearing constantly in the media. Make up your own mind. Okay? So, something else that started, I'm going to talk about therapeutics and the president at the end of this video. So hang tight if you want to hear what actually happened with that. A hashtag started trending on Twitter this week that had everybody WTF is going on, which was hashtag Obamagate. People are like, what is that? Why is that trending? What is the thing about that? So what's happening right now behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know is that many documents are being declassified and quickly. Oh, see, so Kobe's saying the very first thing that she found was a link between those two. Interesting. That's what people are losing platforms for. So, interesting. A lot of documents that were previously considered classified, they were sealed up, they were tied up somewhere else, are becoming public record now. People who were holding up these documents are being fired, and new people are being put in their positions who are then handing off documents. Last week I talked about some declassification that happened, an email dump that happened, which was very, very extensive. Recently, I believe in the last week, Rick Grinnell came into the Department of Justice with a bag full of transcripts that were being held up, that were not being turned over for looking through. So Rick Grinnell is the new acting director of national intelligence. He brings with him interviews that were not made public. Apparently they were private interviews, transcripts of private interviews of a lot of people that we know. And the interviews regarded the Spygate, the whole Russian collusion issue, the whole impeachment situation. There was all these conversations with different people that were in transcripts. Now, the Department of Justice has released all of those transcripts, so you yourself can go to Department of Justice and you can read through them. Okay, it's very black and white. It's not like this person said this and the other person, no. It's literally a piece of paper with words of transcripts, okay? And a lot of things are becoming public knowledge that are rocking people's worlds. And the reason that hashtag started trending, because at first it was Spygate, right? Well, spying on the presidential campaign, or spying on the administration, or Russian collusion. Were the Russians doing this? Were they not doing that? Whatever. Is because what's becoming increasingly more obvious with all of these transcripts and the information that continues to be declassified is that the previous president was not only aware of what was happening or what was going to happen, but he was involved, which is not legal, as you can imagine, and in very poor taste. It's very, very problematic. And this is new information. I mean, this is really groundbreaking information. Not only was the impeachment fake, not only were those warrants faked, not only was it paid for, as we're discovering in these transcripts, by two very specific people. I will link all this below. Be mindful of what I'm saying because censorship. But this person knew about it, about all of it. All of it. That's a really big deal. People are not going to like that. People are going to be really mad about that. People really liked Obama, myself included. I voted for him. And a lot of the information that's becoming public right now looks not very good. I'm going to tell you that right now. Doesn't look good. Looks very bad. And what I find endlessly hilarious not hilarious, but like, really, this is what we're going to spend our time doing? Is now there's this whole liberal push to like remove Barr, Attorney General Barr. They're questioning his decisions because of Flynn, because of all these transcripts that are coming out. He's working with Trump. He's paid off, right? That's what all these liberal-minded people are saying. Here's the thing, y'all. Evidence is evidence. Hard evidence is hard evidence. When you have someone's handwriting on a piece of paper, like in Flynn's case, talking about what is the intention of this investigation, what do we want to do with him, basically, how do we frame him, what do we get him to say? When you have someone's handwriting on paper, it is not just someone's opinion, okay? It's not just someone's opinion. It's not. It's now evidence, okay? Yes, I also hate that the Dems co-opted the word liberal. I think it's stupid, frankly. Like, they did, and it's not cool, because being liberal-minded does not equal that party. You're right. I hate that they did that. Anyways, Attorney General Barr is doing his job. He's doing his job. He is literally receiving information, documentation. He's it's becoming declassified public records. It's going to the Department of Justice website. Anybody can look through it. And then he's sharing findings based on upholding the law. This isn't about opinions, and they're doing this on purpose. They're being extremely transparent about the decisions that they're making, and they're being freaking super smart about it, because they're not just making a decision, they're dropping all of this paperwork, making it public for everybody to see, and then making a decision. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they don't want this kind of conversation to happen. They don't want you to come up and say, you're just saying that because so-and-so or someone bought you. No, they want you to see for yourself, this is the evidence that has been presented to us. Based on that evidence, this is the decision that we're making. Okay? This is how this works. This is how this works. Okay? So before, those of you who are more Democratic oriented, who are following leaders who are talking about attacking Barr, like, really look at the evidence yourself. Go through the transcripts yourself. Read what is there. Like, really, do it. Because it's not just something you're making up. It's physical hard evidence, guys. It just is. The fact that you don't like it, I understand. But it is what it is. Okay? And here's the other thing. Again, I have said before, I'm not a Q person. I don't hardcore follow them. I find it fascinating that kind of an organization exists, that this project has been ongoing since the president came in office. It blows my mind. And people are always like, none of their predictions come true. Nothing they say comes true. And so I've been paying attention to that. I'm like, you know what? I wonder if these people who say that these people are like full of crap are right. But what's hilarious is that Q predicted that Barr was going to be attacked weeks ago. He was literally, or they were literally like, this is going to happen. In 2018, they said Flynn was going to be exonerated. 2018. I don't know anybody else was saying that at that point. They said it. And then they said, and Barr is going to be attacked. He's going to be questioned because of these decisions. Guess what's happening? Exactly what they said. So, I don't know how they knew that. I can't tell you, but that happened. So, pay attention. Read more than just the clips. So, this just happened in news. The media makes me mad. It just makes me wild. They took a clip of an interview with Attorney General Barr, and they made it sound like, when they asked him about how is this going to go down in history, this decision with Flynn, he was like, well, I mean, it depends on who's writing the history, because, you know, the winners get to write history. They cut off the interview at that point, and they refused to play the rest of the interview where Barr says, but what is happening here is we are just upholding the law. I am just looking at the evidence and I'm making decisions based on that. That was the rest of the interview, which they didn't show you. Wonder why not? Didn't go with the narrative. They're not going to show you the rest of the video because it didn't go with the narrative. It's very, very simple. Okay? Yeah, it's true. The mainstream media never shows any Q drops, which I'm like, if these people were really like and they attack them. First of all, there's been so much attack when it comes to these extreme right-wing people. Like, they make them sound like they're literally like insane, right? They spend so much energy trying to like debunk them, but then they never ask the president any questions about it. They never talk about it on the media, right? They just like trash talk them, but they never bring up like a point, an example, nothing. They're just like, they're crazy, you know? It's just, it's a hot mess. Mainstream media is a hot mess. Okay, I'm also going to share a link to a video of, it looked like it was a deputy commission meeting in Italy, where an Italian deputy gets up and speaks to everybody who's present, the president of the committee, and it's in Italian, but it's subbed in English, and talks very passionately about the WHO and this VAXX agenda to basically enslave, control, hurt people, because Europe is like, the US has really separated themselves from that entire agenda, but Europe is still very much in its grasp, and it's getting scary. It's getting real scary over there. You think it's scary in the US, it's getting real scary over there. And it was such a phenomenal, impassioned, articulate argument about why everybody needs to be rejecting these measures. It moved me to tears. I was in tears watching her speak. So I shared this on social media, and I said, if we think this is just a US problem, if we think this is just a political issue, if we think this is just about us, we are so wrong. This is a worldwide event. This is a worldwide effort to not fall prey and victim to sinister intentions. That's what this is. It's a worldwide effort to not fall prey to sinister intentions. And every citizen has to be vigilant. This is a global effort. We talked about the draconians before. We've talked about the origins of the earth. We've talked about the earth agenda. If you don't know about my earth agenda video, watch it, okay? This is a take back, a very literal one, and it requires everybody's participation. So to that brave Italian deputy who did that, I honor you. I think you're amazing. Thank you for taking a stand for your country and for the world, and for being an example of a valiant citizen. I think you deserve a freaking hero award, in my opinion. So I'll share that video down there as well. Now, one of my Patreons wanted me to talk about something specific, so I saved the best for last, which, by the way, if you're not a part of our Patreon community, the link is on the screen. This is where you share your patronage with me and for my work, and you also get early access, early calendar updates for when I do lives. You get to ask me questions, make requests for my videos, all that kind of cool stuff happens there. And she asked me if I could speak about POTUS, President of the United States, and his position on vaccines. And he gave a talk about that today, and a lot of people were very concerned, myself included, because of how quickly this immunotherapy is being processed and put out to market. Typically, these take a long time, and it's still not enough time and investigation, in my opinion. I think it deserves much longer studies, and so the already not comfortable length of study is being shortened for the sake of creating something in mass and to get to millions of people quickly. And everybody really wanted to know what his position was going to be on that, because there was this kind of hush-hush underground talk about mandatory, and that was put to rest today because I heard the entire talk. A lot of people left midway through the talk, and so you missed very important information. Don't do that. Don't leave in the middle of briefings. Listen to the whole briefing. Go back and listen to the whole thing. He said that it will be available most likely by end of year, beginning of next year, for anybody who wants it. And he specifically said that do not. We also have other therapeutics. So they're not just working on those types of therapeutics, they're working on other therapeutics as well. Not as aggressively, but with the same level of intensity so that you can treat once you have symptoms or you're symptomatic, etc. He never once mentioned the word mandatory. He said, for those that want it, we will have it. There's so many that are passing around that he's waiting for. Yeah, so that's the fear. And I'm reporting what was said today live. Like, that briefing was actually today, and that's what was said. Not once was that said during the live. He specifically said for those that want it, it'll be available. Not everybody's going to want it, and we have other therapeutics. He made that very clear, that they were working on other simultaneous therapeutics as well. My opinion on that is, POTUS is conservative. He just is. He represents a very conservative party. Conservatives do not like their constitutional rights trampled on. They don't like their freedoms taken away. They do not like their things touched, if you know what I'm saying. That's not their thing. So I have a very hard time believing that this particular POTUS would be the one to mandate something like that. It goes against the general theme of the party that he represents. Not against the opposing party, however, which is really concerning and should be for anybody who is still aligned with that party. But I would find it very strange if a decision like that was called, because it just goes against the general premise of the party that he represents. So there's that. There's also some other links that I shared. There's a very interesting article that came out from Italy, Italian doctors who were doing autopsies and discovered that what was happening to the lungs was not actually, it wasn't looking like a virus at all. It was actually looking like something else. And that article disappeared shortly after I found it, but I did find a medical study that was along the lines of what they were talking about, and I have the link for that. It's a very long link. It came from Bing, so that you guys can kind of read through it and see that side of the conversation of what else it could be. I did find it really interesting. I have another link on here. I was on Twitter just scrolling, and there was an ad for Johnson & Johnson. And the ad said, and I have a link to the ad, which I'll share below as well, like, we were working on a vaccination before anybody even knew what it was. Like, they were, like, proud of that. Like, we were on it before y'all knew about it. And I'm like, how were you on it before anybody knew about it? And that was said today again during the briefing. I'm like, how? If you didn't know what it was, how were you creating immunotherapy for it already? The only way you do that is by knowing what it is. So I'm like, they're not even trying to hide the fact that this was not an accident. And it didn't take everybody by surprise. It only took some people by surprise. But clearly not everybody. Because J&J are super proud of been working on this forever before anybody knew about it. Like, that's weird. What do you mean? So something else that I found really interesting was I was watching a Disney movie. This is the other link that I have on here, called National Treasure. You guys have probably seen it. It seems to be pretty popular. I had never seen this movie, National Treasure. And at one point, Nicolas Cage's character quotes a part of the Declaration of Independence. He's standing in front of it, and he's talking about how no one ever talks like that anymore. He's so impassioned about this document, and the particular line that he says really caught my eye, especially right now. And it says, "Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed." This is the full quote. He did a shortened version of that. "Governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same objective, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, meaning the citizens, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security." in the Declaration of Independence. We were told this might happen. We were told usurpations, abuses, despotism might happen. And it would be your right and your duty to make sure it doesn't. To throw off the government and appoint new leaders. So if you don't like people storming on the Capitol Hill, if you don't like people going into businesses, fighting, opening up the shops, fighting tyrannical measures, which a lot of these have ended up being really tyrannical and extreme, they're just doing what they were told. It's written right there. Beginning of this nation, it says right there, permission granted. Let us not forget the origins of this nation, what was lost for it, and what was waged for it. Let us not forget that when the British were running the show and they were telling us it was for our safety and our protection, that they should come into our homes, that they should be the ones taxing us and taking advantage of us, and they were like, it's for your own good, that it wasn't. And it cost a whole lot of people a whole lot of suffering. Okay? We are in a very similar position right now, friends. It looks really different. It looks nowhere like it did then, but it is not different. It is not different. We might not have muskets anymore, and we might not be, sending letters through the mail to each other and having secret coup and organizations here and there, but we have the internet. We have a lot of different tools now. War looks different. Shadow banning, censorship, it looks different than it did then, but it is not different. It is not different. And it is up to us to take care of each other, to remember where we came from, to remember to protect each other, even if we don't agree with each other, to remember that this isn't about bringing each other down, it's about bringing each other up together. This isn't about this nation against that nation, it's all nations against sinister intentions and sinister objections. So open your mind and open your heart. Read thoroughly between the lines. Make sure you do not discount something because it doesn't immediately agree with you. And please, when you're out there and you're stating your points and you're trying to debate, do it intelligently. Don't go into verbal abuse. Don't go into tearing people down. Keep an open mind and an open heart. This is how we rise together. This is how we go into that 5V frequency. This is how we shift the planet. We don't do it by tearing people apart. We don't do it by making other people feel less than, even if we intensely disagree with what they're saying or who they are. We cannot get there like that. We can't. Okay? So if I believe every single human on this planet wants a better future. Maybe we have a different idea of what that looks like, but I deeply believe we all do. And we can have that. But we can't have that tearing each other down. We can't. We're never going to get there. Okay? So I leave you with this message, and hopefully this jumps into your spirit and it really enlivens you, makes you proud of being a citizen of this world, and if you're in the US, of being in the US, which is an amazing Declaration of Independence made for you, so that you would never forget where you came from or what was the price of what we now have. Okay? I love you guys, as always. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next week for another Fireside Friday chat. Be well.